Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to welcome you to this event organized by Trends Research and Advisory in collaboration with Saif bin Zayed Academy for Security and Policing Science, entitled Sustainability in Police and Security Services, Innovation and the Path to COP28. Global changes such as extreme hot waves and unpredictable weather, more frequent natural disasters, as well as long-term trends are expected to increasingly impact the daily lives of inhabitants in many countries around the world. As a result, the basic environment for policing and security may be also affected with the new challenges arising at both operation and strategic levels. Police forces around the world, including in Abu Dhabi and UAE, have already begun their journey towards strengthening sustainability in planning and operation at strategic level. In this framework, our program today begins with welcoming remarks from Dr. Mohammed Abdullah Al-Ali, CEO of Trends Research and Advisory. Please welcome.
السلام عليكم. أيها الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. اسمحوا لي أن أتوجه بالشكر الجزيل إلى سعادة اللواء ثاني بطي الشامسي، مدير أكاديمية سيف بن زايد للعلوم الشرطية والأمنية، على اختياره ترنز للبحوث والاستشارات شريكاً معرفياً وبحثياً للأكاديمية في تنظيم هذا المؤتمر المهم في هذا المحفل العالمي الذي تستضيف فيه دولة الإمارات العالم كله بحثاً عن أفضل الطرق لتحقيق الاستدامة ومواجهة تحديات التغير المناخي. كما اسمحوا لي أن أرحب بكل المشاركين والضيوف في هذه الندوة المهمة التي تأتي ضمن مجموعة واسعة من الأنشطة التي ينظمها ويشارك فيها مركز ترنز للبحوث والاستشارات خلال فعاليات مؤتمر كوب 28 لمواكبة هذا الحدث العالمي والجهود التي تبذلها دولة الإمارات في مجال تحقيق الاستدامة والعمل المناخي البناء. فقد قدمت دولة الإمارات التي تحتفل هذه الأيام بعيدها الوطني 52 منذ إنشائها نموذجاً مميزاً في مجال الحفاظ على البيئة وصيانة الموارد وتحقيق الاستدامة في مختلف المجالات. وتأتي استضافة دولة الإمارات لمؤتمر الأطراف في اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الإطارية للمناخ في دورته 28 لتؤكد للعالم أجمع مدى التزامها الجاد بمواجهة تحديات أزمة تغير المناخ، وهي أكثر الأزمات المركبة التي يختبرها العالم أجمع، وتحويلها إلى فرص حقيقية والعمل على ابتكار أدوات تمويلية جديدة لمشروعات الاستدامة. وتعد المؤسسات الأمنية والشرطية جزء من هذا النهج الشامل الذي تتبعه الإمارات في مجال الاستدامة، حيث تقوم هذه المؤسسات بدور رائد في الالتزام باستراتيجية الدولة للحد من الانبعاثات الضارة والتحول إلى الطاقة النظيفة والإسهام في تطبيقها وصولاً إلى تحقيق هدف الحياد الكربوني عام 2050. وتتعدد سبل إسهام المؤسسات الأمنية والشرطية في هذا الشأن، ولكن أهمها هو تقليل البصمة الكربونية لسيارات الشرطة ومعداتها، وأيضاً تعزيز عملية الابتكار الأخضر التي تسعى إلى ضمان أن نفقات ومشتريات أجهزة الشرطة لا تزيد من الانبعاثات، وأن مركباتها تعتمد على الوقود المحايد للكربون بشكل متزايد، وزيادة الكفاءة واستدامة العمليات بالاستهلاك المسؤول في جميع عملياتها المختلفة. ويقيني أن التزام مؤسسات الشرطة بالحد من الانبعاثات وتقليل البصمة الكربونية والتحول إلى الطاقة النظيفة سوف يكون له تأثير إيجابي كبير في المجتمع، لأن عمل الشرطة يتصل بأفراد المجتمع من قريب، كما أن هذا الالتزام من شأنه أن يضرب المثل لسائر مؤسسات الدولة، ومن ثم يدفع بجهود الاستدامة في الدولة إلى الأمام. وفي الختام أرحب مرة أخرى بكم جميعا في هذه الفعالية المهمة عن الاستدامة في خدمات أجهزة الأمن والشرطة، متمنيا لكل الخبراء المشاركين التوفيق في تقديم أفكار إبداعية تعزز هذا التوجه نحو الاستدامة. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed Lali. And now, the keynote address will be delivered by His Excellency Major General Thani Batish Shamsi, Director of Saif bin Zayed Academy for Police and Security Science. Please welcome.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق أجمعين، أصحاب السعادة، السادة الضباط، ضيوفنا الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إنه لمن دواعي الفخر والاعتزاز أن أقف اليوم أمامكم مرحبا بكم في ملتقى القيادة العامة لشرطة أبو ظبي لعام 2023 بعنوان الاستدامة للخدمات الشرطية والأمنية، حيث تتشرف دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة باستضافة القمة 28 لمؤتمر الأطراف COP28 لسنة 2023. وتتطلع القيادة العامة لشرطة أبو ظبي الخروج من هذا المؤتمر بنتائج إيجابية ومثمرة لإيجاد حلول لتحقيق الغايات الصعبة لأهداف التنمية المستدامة، تمشياً مع توجيهات سيدي صاحب السمو الشيخ محمد بن زايد آل نهيان رئيس الدولة حفظه الله ورعاه، وتأكيد سموه بأن عام الاستدامة لسنة 2023 اليوم للغد، وهو تجسيد لنهج دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة وأهدافها ورؤيتها في مجال الاستدامة من خلال الأعمال والجهود والمبادرات اليومية، والتي نضع من خلالها مستقبل أفضل لنا ولأبنائنا وأحفادنا، لنترك إرثاً إيجابياً للأجيال المقبلة. نحن بالقيادة العامة لشرطة أبو ظبي نؤمن بأن الأجهزة الأمنية والشرطية يجب أن تعزز من بيئة الاستثمار وتكثيف الجهود الاستباقية بحرفية عالية، ونعتمد على أحدث التقنيات الرقمية والذكاء الاصطناعي. إن التحدي الذي يواجه أجهزة الشرطة على الصعيد العالمي يتمثل في كيفية تقديم الخدمات الأساسية لمجتمعاتها، وتلبية أوقات الاستجابة لحالات الطوارئ، وتحقيق التوازن بين احتياجات المواطنين وتوقعاتهم، وتحقيق أعلى مستويات الحياة لأفراد المجتمع سواء في الإمارة أم الدولة، والشعور بالمسؤولية تجاه الاستدامة. وهذا ليس بالأمر اليسير، ولكن الاستمرار في القيام بأعمال الشرطة بالطرق التقليدية أيضاً أمر غير مقبول. لذلك تطورت التكنولوجيا وتوافرت البدائل الفعالة ذات الكفاءة، وبالتالي لا بد من استخدامها وتشجيع العاملين عليها، وكذلك حث جميع القادة مسؤولي تشجيع الابتكار والإبداع، وذلك لتحفيز موظفينهم وتحسين الخدمات وتطوير الحلول المستدامة. السادة الحضور، يوفر منتدى ومؤتمر الأطراف 28 فرصة ممتازة لمناقشة كل هذه الموضوعات الهامة وتحقيق التوجه المستقبلي للاستدامة. وإن القيادة العامة لشرطة أبو ظبي تتبنى أفضل الممارسات العالمية في مجال الأمن والأمان، والتركيز على الأبحاث والدراسات لضمان استمرارية الريادة والاحتفاظ بمكانة عالية مرموقة في ميدان الأمان الدولي. ونؤكد التزامنا بتطوير استراتيجياتنا بشكل دائم ومستمر من خلال تعزيز الاستدامة وتحقيق الطموحات للجميع. لكم منا جزيل الشكر والتقدير والامتنان، مع أطيب التمنيات لكم جميعا، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Your Excellency. As we progress, a video presentation will showcase the sustainability activities of Abu Dhabi Police in run-up to COP28.
الطاقة والمياه والغذاء وتحقيق التنمية المستدامة وتوفير الحياة الكريمة لأجيال الحاضر والمستقبل.
Abu Dhabi Police is confidently moving towards sustainability as part of its strategic vision. Abu Dhabi is a world leader in sustainable security and safety, with the goal of achieving police institutional leadership that anticipates the future with innovative, proactive services that improve the quality of life. In line with President His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan's declaration of 2023 as the year of sustainability. God willing, 2023 will be the year of sustainability. It has particular significance as the UAE prepares to host the COP28. Our history and approach to preserving the environment and sustaining its resources is consistent. I encourage our society's members to embrace fresh ideas and high-quality activities that reflect our country's civilized image. Abu Dhabi Police has expressed its commitment to leading the way in fulfilling the goals of the Abu Dhabi government. It aims to work closely with key partners to achieve sustainable development objectives outlined in the national agendas and the UAE Vision 2023. Its goal is to set an example by utilizing their existing resources wisely, ensuring a sustainable future. The Security Sustainability Report 2022 has highlighted numerous accomplishments in various areas. These include government institutional excellence, quality of life and community well-being, digital maturity and empowerment, our employees towards excellence and leadership, our environment, and social responsibility. In terms of institutional excellence, Abu Dhabi Police maintained the lead of the Emirate of Abu Dhabi as the world's safest city for 7 consecutive years, according to the Numbeo Index. It won 32 local, regional, and international awards in enhancing institutional reputation during the year 2022 in various police and security fields, obtaining the European Foundation Award with a 6-star rating as the first police institution. It also bagged the EFQM Award for Quality Management from the same organization, succeeding in reaching the diamond level. It applied distinguished practices in the field of anti-corruption and risk management and worked to find appropriate and sustainable solutions in the field of health and occupational safety. In regards to quality of life and community well-being, Abu Dhabi Police is delivering the most innovative services to improve the quality of life in the community, while also protecting the security and safety of drivers in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. It developed an innovative AI-based program that involves the use of urgent alert messages delivered to smartphones to advise motorists about hazardous weather such as rain, fog, dust, and accidents that could cause traffic congestion. Drivers are reminded to slow down by alerts delivered to smart tower boards. Smart patrols have also been deployed and have been successful in identifying cars and wanted individuals, as well as obtaining electronic reports. Display panels on public transportation buses have also been installed to increase road safety awareness. A remote visitation service for inmates of penal and penitentiary institutions has also been developed. A remote trials initiative have also been launched in collaboration with the Emirate of Abu Dhabi's Judicial Department. As a result, 42 video communication devices have been installed and the massage system has been developed to meet inmates' needs in compliance with the highest international standards. A self-service device called Mu'een has also been introduced to provide inmates with 79 electronic services. In terms of digital maturity and empowerment, to that goal, Abu Dhabi Police developed a dedicated artificial intelligence strategy to complement the UAE's smart government strategy and the Ministry of Interior's digital transformation strategy. It improved the digitization of integrated services with 728 partners and built a world-class technology infrastructure to assure service availability around the clock. Abu Dhabi Police undertook various digital initiatives, including a Athir Communications Initiative, which helped to reduce electricity use and the carbon footprint. Work is being done to create a drone-based system that will picture incidents and broadcast them immediately to the operations room. Eleven technical initiatives and projects have also been created to support Abu Dhabi Police's digital maturity system and to produce indicators to measure digital maturity. In terms of our employees' excellence and leadership, Abu Dhabi Police has implemented innovative and unconventional methods to identify and nurture talented employees. According to the objectives of the National Strategy for Quality of Life, employee happiness centers were aiming to ensure a superior standard of living within the workplace for all employees. The organization implemented the innovative and motivating Hafiz system for its employees, focusing on 4 key areas: performance, commitment, participation, knowledge, and innovation. It trained 195 happiness ambassadors to arrange activities for all employees in different sectors and motivated employees and their families to engage in sports. The Abu Dhabi Police Department has implemented Jiu-Jitsu, which contributes to the improvement of the employees' mental and physical abilities. It worked to empower Emirati women and assist distinguished ones in assuming leadership positions in police and security-related work, with a particular emphasis on specialized disciplines. Abu Dhabi Police also cared for people of determination's employees, protecting their rights and empowering them and their families to play active roles. In regard to the environment, Abu Dhabi Police has implemented international green standards to ensure sustainability. It has adopted an environmentally friendly approach to achieve a Sustainability Pearl building rating system. This involves using energy-efficient lighting, solar heaters, and constructing buildings in a manner that reduces carbon emissions and optimizes energy consumption. The organization embraced the idea of the circular economy and created a comprehensive electronic record of all decentralized financial receipts. Additionally, it executed a solar energy initiatives in parking lots comprising of 189 parking lots equipped with solar panels on their roofs. This setup generated a total energy capacity of 417 kilowatts and aids in the reduction of carbon emissions. In terms of community responsibility, Abu Dhabi Police, in collaboration with the community security sector, has shown great interest in engaging staff members in various community initiatives and volunteer opportunities. The number of volunteers has exceeded 4,406 individuals. The Community Police Department strives to foster strong relationships with the community members from diverse backgrounds, promoting tolerance, peaceful coexistence, and the sense of positive citizenship through community councils. The Community Police Department has also provided training to the members of the We Are All Police project with the aim of encouraging the active participation of society in promoting security and safety. It was able to initiate the Chance of Hope initiative through the criminal security sector in collaboration with strategic partners in order to educate the public about the dangers of drugs and offer treatment options to drug addicts. Through the GHQ Affairs sector, it also provided an Aman service that manages information in a secure, confidential, and professional manner around the clock, thereby enhancing efforts to combat and prevent crime. Finally, Abu Dhabi Police has successfully aligned with the desires of the wise leadership. It has achieved incredible global milestones in maintaining security and safety in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. This has been made possible through the utilization of smart systems, artificial intelligence technology, innovation, and proactive, preventive, and future-oriented services.
نحن نريد نرسل رسالة إيجابية سمعة الإمارات، ونحاول نرسل رسالة بما تعني من عاداتنا وتقاليدنا ومعانينا وآدابنا وأخلاقنا واللي تربينا عليه.
Finally, our panel today will bring together experts from UAE and the United States and Belgium that will take a deep dive into the theme of sustainability in police and security services. Mr. Stephen and the panelists, please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon to all of you. I'm delighted to join my colleagues in wishing you a warm welcome to today's event. It's wonderful to see such a large crowd in this beautiful UAE pavilion on the occasion of the UAE's hosting of COP28. My name is Stephen Scarlett. I'm a scientific advisor at Trends Research in Abu Dhabi. On this occasion, we're very much honored to respond to the wise decision of Abu Dhabi Police and the Saif bin Zayed Academy to convene an event which brings together the worlds of policing and sustainability. As a think tank, what we like to do constantly is to push the frontiers of knowledge. This is a very appropriate event. It's one of the few events of this kind held even around the world or in the context of COP, and we're honored to be here with you today. As you know, as senior officers, the external environments are changing very rapidly and in very unpredictable ways. From our perspective, and we believe from the perspective of the Saif bin Zayed Academy, or in the scientific field, it's very important to understand the exact nature of threats and challenges and their implications so that our planning activities can be accurate. It's equally important to take stock of the excellent work which has already been done, and I refer to the video of Abu Dhabi Police on sustainability and technology and innovation, so that when we build for the future, it can be done on the basis of a firm foundation today. Within the United Nations framework, we believe that bringing together security and sustainability is very important to certain United Nations SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals we're all familiar with. I refer to SDG 7 on clean energy. We have seen in the video the solar power panels with considerable wattage. We have seen the efficient and sustainable use of energy resources and infrastructure in the police stations. We have also seen the police acting as a model for the behavior of the population, which, by the way, is a theme that we also discussed in our event this morning, and the fact that the general population looks to the police and their behavior to model behaviors on sustainability. I'm delighted to introduce our 4 panelists today, each of whom is a leading voice within their respective areas. These areas cover the climate security nexus, high technology, artificial intelligence, smart cities, forensics, and ecological degradation and climate change. Our first speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Engineer Ahmed Al-Shamsi, heads the Safe City Department at Abu Dhabi Police. He is a technologist and an innovator by nature and oversees the operational implementation of artificial intelligence, smart city concepts, and other high technology approaches to keep the residents of Abu Dhabi safe and secure. In addition, Lieutenant Colonel Al-Shamsi is an author published in leading academic journals, including the Oxford University Press Journal of Policing, in which his articles have covered high technology and AI levels of engagement. Lieutenant Colonel, with such a background, it's inevitable that I have to ask you the question. There's traditional policing, and then there's the kind of policing which Abu Dhabi is involved in at the moment, very high technology. So which challenges has technology helped the police resolve?
Basically, I mean, if you go back 5 years, you're going to realize that information and all the data is the very factor that really can enhancing and improving the work, especially in policing. So in Abu Dhabi Police, we decided really to take steps forward, and we did analyze all the mega trends all around the world, and we really calculated all these challenges we are facing, and we found that the most challenging things happening in the world and for all these police organizations, once you have in current events, I mean like once you have sequence incidents happening at the same time. Like imagine you have like within 10 minutes, you have many incidents happening in different locations. Like you have here like fire alarms, and in some areas you have many car accidents. There is a crime happening here. This is the most challenge we are facing with all the policing all around the world, how to deal with all these incidents at the same time and how you use your resource to get over all this in the same time. So what we have done here, like we said, we're gonna have like specific organizations, like a unit to be really looking into these cases. We built up something, we call it Safe City Centers. This center is like an innovative predictive center. Its build depends on artificial intelligence integration between system, and the main goal of this center is to really support decision maker on the right time with the right information, with the right data we have. And also we trying to utilize these outcomes of this center, how we could really help to make our life safer and how to make this road safer. And one of the case uses we have, like, you know, the heavy vehicle trucks, it's really making a headache for all these policing, you know, when there is like an accident happening by the heavy trucks, always we ended up with a severe accident. So what we have done there, like we built a solution for these heavy trucks. Like for example, there is a certain time with specific area, with specific road, those heavy trucks has to be used this one, because we want to avoid this traffic jam. So what we have done that using all these cameras we have, all the MBR system we have, the car readers here, we came up with an idea using the video analytic. We could also really manage all this vehicle traffic. Like for example, if any of these trucks not using the right road, the right time, they could detect automatically using all this video analytic. So what we came up like within 5 years, we really get over this habit. All these drivers within a couple of time really obeying to the traffic rules. So as a result, we reduce about 50% of death because of accident, because of heavy vehicles. And one thing to mention about it, the duration of all the driver from, for example, from home to work, it's been reduced about to 20%. Like for example, we take an analysis of like maybe 100 of driver. Before we did this applying this system, we see like for example, they spend 10 minutes from their houses to get to the work. After using this system to reduce this traffic jam, they, for example, we reduce about 20%, like taking like 8 minutes. And this is positively, for example, we're going to reduce CO2 as a percentage in general.
Well, that's an incredible statistic. 50% reduction in death over 5 years. It's very quick.
Yeah, in 5 years, yeah, because of track accident reductions.
It's wonderful work. And I was wondering, Lieutenant Colonel, I've lived in Abu Dhabi for a few years now, and I was here in 2018. And I don't know if many of you remember, in 2018 there was an incredible storm in April, slightly before Easter. An incredible storm. I was driving back from Dubai, and on the Musafir Road, the trees were being blown over. So this is roughly what we consider the beginning of the awareness of the phenomena of extreme weather and climate, and of course there's an impact on safety and security. So I was wondering, what's your perspective on that? Does technology have a role to play?
It does. I really remember that date very, very well. In 2018, it was the biggest car accident happened in Abu Dhabi. There were like more than 120 cars being involved in that accident and more than 25 deaths they got there. Since then, we really utilize technology in that. So what we have done there, we really invest on something we call it the smart towers. We distribute it all around the main road in Abu Dhabi. These smart towers, it has a lot of things to do. Like for example, it has weather sensor, it's integrated with the radars, and also it has like this electronic screen where you could display. So what we have done, like we did the analysis, like how much time the driver need to take an action on the severe weather. So we noticed that, for example, he should not drive more than 60 kilometers, 80 kilometers. So like during this visibility weather, like for example, when the visibility is getting so low, like because of fog or because any severe weather they have there, what we have done there, like using all these sensors, we get an alert on this in our operation room. So suddenly the system will automatically like display the new speed who the driver they're supposed to drive there. And we connect it to the radar. For example, if the driver he exceeds the speed, they will get fines automatically using this one. And also this system integrated with the Ittisalat, so we also send this broadcast messages to all people to warn them that there is a reduction in the visibility in front of them. This system itself, from 2018 till 2022, we have zero death because of severity index, and also we have zero severe accident because of severity weather.
Again, that's a very high technology approach to solving challenging situations on the roads. Thank you for your intervention, Lieutenant Colonel. Our next speaker, Ms. Erin Sikorsky, is the Director of the Center for Climate and Security and the International Military Council on Climate and Security, which is the international arm of your organization. Previously, Ms. Sikorsky served as Deputy Director of the Strategic Futures Group on the National Intelligence Council, where you led the U.S. intelligence community's environmental and climate security analysis. Ms. Sikorsky is also an adjunct professor at George Mason University, a consultant to the Defense Science Board, and a member of the Climate Migration Council. Erin earned her Master of International Affairs at Columbia and a BA in Government from Smith College. Well, Erin, by the introduction, it doesn't do you justice. I've heard you speak many times now, and I know the breadth of your experience in climate and security, which involves military affairs, policing, civil defense, and so on. And significantly for the audience, Ms. Sikorsky has been active for many decades. You'll tell us exactly when you started, but we would love to hear the best insights of your experience. The floor is yours, Erin.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you to the Trends and the Police Academy for hosting this conversation. What I thought I would do is a couple of things. I thought first, talk about the trajectory we're on in terms of climate change, because as this conference is all about cutting emissions, mitigation, so we don't reach high temperature levels is very important. But at the same time, we have to recognize that for the next couple of decades, adaptation is going to be very important as well, because temperatures will continue to warm in these few decades because of the amount of carbon that's already in the atmosphere. So as we think about planning for police and security services, we need to recognize that these next few decades are going to be ones of more extreme weather events, more regular heat waves, and a real changing baseline from what we traditionally have expected in terms of weather and climate. And so for strategic planning for militaries and security services, making sure we're not planning to old, outdated data and understandings of climate and environment is going to be really important in challenging our assumptions about when to expect the kind of storms that were just talked about here, right? And making sure we're not using old understandings going forward. with that kind of broader point, I had three things I wanted to say. One, about the direct risks we see of these hazards to police and security services. You know, heat itself is a risk for equipment, right? It's a risk for personnel. We're seeing in the United States where the US military is really focused on ensuring operational stability, operational effectiveness in a warmer and climate changed environment. A US Department of Defense official has said that the military needs to own the heat, the way they once talked about owning the night, right? With technologies for night vision goggles and whatnot. So thinking about that going forward is going to be really important. There will also be an increased demand for emergency response from police and security officials when disasters happen, right? Again, here I can speak from the United States, where police services across the country are responding to extreme heat waves and populations that are being affected with health effects by that. You can read some stories from this past summer in Arizona in the United States, where the police were nearly every day being called on to respond to heat events for vulnerable populations. And so that demand is going to go up at the same time that the climate hazards themselves are making the jobs of police and security services harder. So that's the direct effect, and we can talk more about that if you want in questions. But there's also the indirect effect of these climate hazards on military and security services. And what I would point to here is what we see in studies around the world looking at populations that are suffering from climate hazards, is that when their governments cannot respond sufficiently to those hazards, it can cause internal protests and instability as well. When populations feel as though they're not getting the services they need, right? They don't have the water access they need, the food access they need. They can at times, turn out in the streets. And so that will be something that communities and countries will have to think about as well. It's especially problematic when in populations it is seen that one group within the population is getting better services than another. And that's a case when you can see spillover into more conflict and instability. So thinking about the indirect, especially for strategic planning for the future, is important. The last thing I'll say is there are also, I think, opportunities here as well. And as we saw in your video and the discussion of the transition to clean energy for vehicles and buildings, police and security services can lead by example. They can set a demand signal, right, for clean energy technologies. In the US, again, the military has said that it's transitioning all of its non-tactical vehicles to electric, I believe by 2035. They have the largest vehicle fleet of any part of the US government, and so that sends a strong market signal, right, that these technologies will be purchased and they'll be deployed, and so you can help change the curve there. I also think as police and security and militaries increase their own resilience, that can help increase the resilience of the communities around them and demonstrate the effects of the transition to clean energy. So I'll leave it there.
And I'll follow up quickly with a quick question for you. Also, General Thani mentioned the importance of strategic partnerships to Abu Dhabi's own strategy. So do you see space within the universe of the climate security nexus and policing services and military, do you see space for strategic partnerships?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of space for militaries and security services around the world to learn from one another, right? Develop best practices. One thing that we do at the International Military Council on Climate and Security is share best practices among members of that group so they can learn from one another, especially I think in education and training, right? As you can imagine, in big institutions like the US military, not everyone necessarily understands why focusing on climate is important, right? If you have a big job already with a lot of things on your to-do list and someone comes in and says, now you need to care about sustainability and climate too, some people are gonna say, oh, come on, I have way too many things to do. And so part of the work to be done is to educate and show how actually those other things on your list, they can be done better or more efficiently or more sustainably in the long term if you bring a climate and environment lens. And so sharing through academies like yours with partners elsewhere, what you've learned, I think can be really impactful going forward.
Thank you, Erin, for that very interesting answer. Our next speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Wafa Al-Tayyari, is a key figure in the Abu Dhabi Police Forensics Department, where her experience and educational credentials are applied to forensic analysis, electronic systems, innovation and invention and training. Dr. Al-Tayyari's PhD thesis explored the uses of artificial intelligence in forensic technology management and evidence presentation. In 2022, Dr. Wafa was acknowledged and awarded as one of the best 40 under 40 police leaders worldwide and has been a role model in innovation within the UAE. Accordingly, she has also been acknowledged by the IFIA in 2022 again as a worldwide inventor. Dr. Wafa, as a forensic expert majoring in technology and improving systems processes, how do you see the application of this technology to the work of your forensics department?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hi, everybody. Before I go to the question, first of all, it is really my pleasure to be here to share with you some of the topics related to sustainability in policing point of view. So, speaking about forensics and the sustainability, we have the digital transformation, and especially in digital transformation, the Forensic Evidence Department in Abu Dhabi Police has built in a system called LIMS, FIDLIMS. This system has been recognized by the International Accreditation 17025, and this system was the first system in the world which not only organized the management part of the forensic, but also the technical part until reporting the case to the customer, to our customer and police stations. So it has, in 2022, it has recognized by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Innovation Center as one of the best practice around United Arab Emirates. FIDLIMS help to support the sustainability in too many ways. The first one, paper consumption, for sure. So it has reduced the paper consumption through using the screens within the FIDLIMS. Secondly, it enhanced the storage of the evidence. So instead to have a big room of storage with cooling systems and lighting, so everything now is stored within the digital system. Also, it is improved the security of data, where the access and the authority, it is controlled. And finally, it is help to collaborate with the others, so with other parties such as prosecutors and investigators. So easy to collaborate as it is digital one. This is the direct effect on sustainability. It has also indirect, where it improves the whole forensic operation within the forensic fields.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. I think in general, unless we're technical experts, we underestimate how much energy can also be saved through efficiency. Now, I know that you have a background in process management, so of course that helps your thinking, but there is an incredible gain to be had in terms of technology being used for efficiency and also for storage and also for collaboration. So that is wonderful to hear that your forensics department is so active, and we hope to see you expand your good work on processes also to other areas of administration in the future to capture the same efficiencies. We will return to your forensics department with questions during the Q&A section. Thank you, Doctor. Our next speaker, Mr. Serge Stroobans, is a former staff officer in the Belgian Army and liaison at NATO HQ, and currently the Global Director for Security, Defence and Intelligence at the Institute for Economics and Peace in Brussels. At the IEP, Serge leads the development of the Global Ecological Threat Report, which identifies areas most at risk of conflict and violence due to climate change. Serge holds degrees from the Belgian Royal Military Academy, the Free University of Brussels, Université Jean Moulin of France, the German General Staff College, and Visadis College. Serge is also a visiting professor at Visadis College in Brussels and the Riga Graduate School of Law. Serge, welcome. With your rather extensive military experience and also at NATO HQ, as one of the major NATO security organizations in the world, it would be very interesting to hear how NATO itself approaches the impact of climate on security.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for having the Institute for Economics and Peace in this panel today. I think NATO is looking at the effects of climate change through a triple lens. First of all, they are looking at the potential for conflict, which is going to be generated, already generated today through climate change. And that's what we measure also in this ecological threat report, when we see a clear vicious cycle setting in between ecological degradation, of course reinforced and accelerated by climate change, and the potential for conflict, one feeding the other and really creating more and more of both. So first of all, they are looking at where am I going to find this conflict? So where could I be used and utilized as a security force in the future? What is this terrain going to look like? And how is this going to affect the operation that I need to also execute down there? So that would be a first approach. What, where, and how? And we know why. The second approach would be to also, once you identify this, you need to train your personnel, you need to also develop concepts, you need to develop different type of strategies, maybe buy or develop new capacities or capabilities, new equipment, new training, you need maybe a new type of soldier. And of course, NATO giving is, I would say, global outreach. You need to be able, and that's what NATO has shown in the past, you need to be able to act maybe in very cold circumstances, in the future maybe in the Arctic or in Eastern Europe, but you also need to be able to do that in more desertic areas, like for most of NATO countries in Iraq maybe, and definitely in Afghanistan also. So you need to be able to adapt to the different conflicts you are going to be used in, and also to, I would say, the conflict that you are going to find down there. So after you identify what, where, and why, and you need to also explain how you are going to take care of this conflict. And I think the third lens, or the third approach they have, is definitely also to minimize their ecological footprint when they are going to go on operations. And Erin, you said it, the non-tactical vehicles will be electric, but the tactical vehicles that they use in conflict, or at least in those areas most affected, will definitely not be electric. Just to give you an idea of a potential ecological footprint, during the operation in Afghanistan, and so the ISAF operation in Afghanistan, on a daily basis, about 2 million liters of jet fuel was used just by planes and helicopters to execute the operation. So just imagine which ecological footprint this is generating. This is just people flying around. Nobody on the ground was really this accountability of the ecological footprint. So what you want to do once you go on operations, once you exercise, I would say, this more security type of operations in a country abroad, you don't want to add to the problem. You want to take away the potential for more insecurity and more problems also. So there again, if you come in a country like this and you start to have a large ecological footprint in a country which is already affected by the effects of climate change or ecological degradation, you're just going to add to the problem. So the third approach is also to minimize the ecological footprint, to make sure that you, first of all, alleviate what's going on in this country by not reinforce the reasons why there is a conflict.
Serge, does NATO account for climate change in its strategic planning? We've heard a few things operationally, but what about the strategy? Do they account for it or not yet?
I think when you look at NATO's strategic concept, operations as such are central. So you, of course, need to be able to do collective defense, which is a form of security, but that's maybe more around the areas of I would say, Europe and Northern America, which are considered today as still not so impacted, and definitely resilient enough to absorb the shocks. So when you look at the territory of NATO and maybe also of its strategic partners, this is not where climate change is going to impact the most. And definitely those countries are also very resilient and can basically address those threats and the impacts and the shocks. So that's the first type of operation. The second type of operation would definitely be cooperative security. So you kind of build partnerships with others. And this is where you start to find countries in certain parts of the world which might be impacted or which will see a larger impact also of climate change. So there an exchange is of course necessary, and you also need to talk about all the threats you're facing, all the potential impact on security that you will face, and climate change or ecological degradation is one of those. And third of all, it's also to be able to deploy your forces, which was basically my task over 20 years of, in the Belgian army, deploying forces all over the world. So you need to make sure that you can conduct operations somewhere in the world when the political leadership is deciding to do so. And I think this is exactly there in this strategy that climate change is going to define which type of operations, define also your, I would say, strategic outlook about which type of operations you could do and where. And what I perceive is when you do a strategic security analysis, which is basically identifying your interest, identifying the threats, and identifying also eventually what you need to build to make sure that the threats cannot impact your interest. Well, climate change needs to be taken into account as one of the threats. And this will also, because at the end of this process, this strategic review, the end of the process is the identification of the capabilities you need and the budgets which go along to make sure that those threats cannot impact. This is where you find climate change and ecological degradation back as a potential threat to your interest or the interests of countries you're going to intervene.
I might disagree with you slightly there, Serge, about the ability of Europe and other parts of the world to absorb the impact of climate change. As an Italian, for the past 3 or 4 summers, I mean, you know this, everybody knows this, we've had brutal fires, more than we used to have, much more than we used to have. We've had brutal droughts and now heat waves where 40 degrees is almost considered normal in cities in which we don't really have ACs yet. People are beginning to implement ACs. And if you go to Florence, Firenze, which is a city, it's in a depression. Please don't go there during summer in Italy. October, November is wonderful to visit. July, August, it's an oven because it's in a depression and it's a heat sink, unbearable, and no ACs, by the way, not unlike here. So in that regard, Serge, I have to say that I disagree a little bit about our ability to absorb, to be resilient. But Erin, maybe you would also like to answer this.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I agree with you, Stephen. I think that there are countries in Europe and in North America are perhaps better positioned, but they still face a lot of risks, and especially as we see climate hazards coming more intensely and more frequently than climate scientists have even predicted. I think it's a place where there are a lot of wrong assumptions as well. And that we've been tracking at the Center for Climate and Security military responses to climate hazards around the globe for about the past year and a half. Every time a military or security service is deployed to respond to floods, heat waves, storms, and we've got hundreds of incidences on every continent of militaries being deployed, and lots in Europe. And I do worry a little bit about NATO and the EU and the strain there. So it's a problem everywhere, but that also means that I think solutions are everywhere, and that collaboration piece we talked about is really important.
Should I also go? No, I think the point I tried to make is, of course, I did not say we were not impacted in Europe or in North America. We definitely are. But I want to, for example, I want to compare Belgium to Mali or Burkina Faso. And there, the capacities to absorb the shocks or even the intensity of the impact are completely different. So if you would rank countries according to both, that's what we do in the ecological threat report, according to the level of the impact and the capacity to absorb that, you have a ranking where European countries and I would say Western countries come out first. I mean, we had I think it's 2 or 3 years ago, we had massive floods in Belgium and in Germany also. Those people who had to be displaced and all the damage, it's already repaired. People are back in their houses. that's unimaginable in major parts of the world also. So that was the point I was trying to make before.
Go to Serge. I have a question for our Emirati innovators. We've just come back from Korea, and before that we were in the United States. And for anybody who's traveled to those in other countries, you know that sometimes on your mobile phones you get this vibration for a civil alert, and it makes a noise, and it's impossible to silence it. It doesn't work because that's the whole idea. So there's some kind of it's a policing or civil defense emergency alert. And I was thinking, with the level of technology and innovation in the UAE, do you have plans for something similar? It would be annoying, but maybe ultimately enhance our lives from safety.
We implemented one of these initiatives that we have in Abu Dhabi Police. We have smart policing, which introduced the artificial intelligence, okay, to detect like if there is any we not call disaster climate change or something. So there is messages. They send messages to the public, tell them exactly what's going on. Yeah, especially when there is a fog, when there is storm, when there is anything, there is, yeah.
Well, that must mean that it doesn't happen often, thank God, because in Korea, in the 2 weeks we were there, we got almost one every day, so maybe they overuse it, but it's a great technology. I was also struck by the smart towers and the sensors that you mentioned, Lieutenant Colonel. Now, this is very important for what Erin mentioned, to baseline the data, to start to develop a baseline capturing of data that we can then study in the future and understand what the trends are. So this is that data, is it saved? It must be saved and stored and put in a database.
See, there is difference between something we call structured data and unstructured data. Structured data is a direct data. You could really build up your analysis on it. Unstructured data, this is the technology we're really focusing on in Abu Dhabi, like to pull the data from different sources from outside, and you do a lot of like data processing. From that data processing, you came up with the decision you want. So all these sensors we distributed all around, for example, these main roads, we always make sure that there is a backup of these sensors. There is some sensor, they send us these alerts with, for example, wrong messages, but there is another system, they will send it with the correct messages. And like how it goes in our department, like for example, we also integrated with the National Weather Center. So merging this data from the machine learning we have and all this data processing we have, we always came up with the right and exact decision based on the data we have.
Well, database decisions are easy to justify, especially when you need to ask for a budget. You say, well, look, the data is clear, so then we need to start this new program and initiative. It's been a wonderful discussion. I see that we have some time left. If the audience would like to ask questions, we'd be delighted to pass you the microphone. Then I have
I have a question here. I don't know who the question is going to be for. We saw Interpol became as a crime organization cross global. Are we going to see a new police force for environmental crimes cross globals soon? Or I don't know if the question who's going to hold this question, but I think the environmental crimes has cross countries and continents. So I would see it like very soon hold an international organization like Interpol just for the environmental crimes.
There's like a double answer to your questions. First of all, I think you're absolutely right to identify that you need new type of capabilities and technologies to basically find it out. I think coming from Belgium, we have a lot of ships. It's a very small part of the sea between Belgium and the UK, and so and one of the most highest level of traffic down there. So We see quite a lot, for example, ships trying to, clean their tanks and things like this. So we developed, of course, new technology, and we developed special kind of brigades to identify this and also identify the ship who did it. So, which we might not have done before. So you see these direct effects, and you see, of course, some forms of crimes that are linked to that, which can be now recognized and for which some capabilities are developed. What I would like also to point out is to, in the same approach to see like what is going on. So of course, reinforced migration. So when we see the impact of climate change in societies, we see that they are exacerbating already political instability, maybe polarization. They are exacerbating things like food and water insecurity, poverty also, and destabilization in society. So I think we need to look at that also. The way you are doing this is you see other forms of violence emerging, and we see a lot of, some will call them eco-activists in Europe, some will call them eco-terrorists in Europe, so those guys who are basically gluing themselves to the road or are basically trying to destroy art pieces. Well, that's something new, so you need to adapt, and sorry, I'm sorry you are on top of this. The threats are evolving permanently, so you always need to adapt and to try to be on top of that. What I explained before, you need to protect yourself from those threats, so your strategy is permanently adapting also. And so we see new forms of crimes, of terror, whatever you want to call it, or new forms of activities in our societies, which we need to address. Sometimes in a very operational manner, like how much time do you need to unglue someone from a road, and where about 6 months ago they were still very gently trying with the product or everything. Now they just like take the piece of the road out, the guy is going with the piece of the road on his hand up to the hospital, there you go. So that's an adaptation in the response you can give to that. And that's really operational. On a strategic level, I think as a security organization, you need to foresee what's going to come. And that's clearly, I mean, in the previous panel, we were discussing about this huge increase in population in sub-Saharan Africa. For example, Africa is going to have an increase by 62% of its population. It's already a very difficult situation today. It's only going to get worse. So for those in Europe, for example, where I come from, who are still thinking about, are we going really to face a migration problem? Is this migration going to affect our societies? Well, this question is already answered, for sure. And many other questions are answered also. So in your preparation to what is going to come, you need to be like one step ahead instead of one step behind, and make sure that when it's going to hit you, and that's why innovation is so important, when it's going to hit you, you're going to be ready and already adapt to potential ecological crimes, or climate crimes, but definitely also the effects that climate change is going to have on your society. And there again, both the impact, but I think security forces or even police departments also have the responsibility to contribute to build a higher resilience and a higher social cohesion within the society, to not allow migration, for example, to exacerbate violence in your society, to not allow other phenomena to create more political instability. So it's again mitigate the impact, and of course you have shown in your video what you can do, but it's also reinforce the cohesion of the societies that you are managing. I think that's very important to have this double approach there also.
If I can build on that a little bit, I have 2 points here. One is I think it's going to be important to prioritize the new types of criminal activity or bad behavior we may see in response to climate and environment. I worry less about the kids gluing themselves to the floor. It's annoying, but it's not a real threat, I think. I worry more about, organizations that take advantage of climate migrants to exploit them for making money, for smuggling humans, right? That sort of thing. Or non-state actors or terrorist groups that can take advantage of communities that don't have food and water and increase recruitment because of that due to climate. And so I think it's important as we adapt to think about kind of how to rank some of these threats. On your question about environmental crime too, one thing I worry about a lot is illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and how that will continue to expand as fish stocks move, as the oceans warm, and how a lot of countries are struggling to manage that within their territorial waters. I think that's going to become more of a challenge. And in some cases, that's a policing effort, it's a Coast Guard effort to respond. But that will, I think, be an area of expanding security concern going forward that will really require maybe some new innovations in policing and security response.
In Europe, we're very much after the arsonists these days. It is a terrible problem, and they have established that a very large proportion of the fires in Europe were started by people, which is an incredible thing. I mean, who would do something like that? It's an incredible thing. So the criminal investigations into that particular problem are very, very active, and we're also looking at some changes at the legislative and criminal law level to discourage that kind of an activity. It's a big deal. Erin, your point about fishing, we had a podcast actually about the ecosystems, and it is incredible to learn how connected everything is in the ecosystem. I mean, literally, one species of fish, when it declines, and we don't think about it, we eat it, we buy it at the fish souk. But once that species of fish goes, or that coral, or that turtle, it destabilizes everything. So I'm in complete agreement with your very insightful comment that also fishing, illegal fishing, has to be addressed.
Can I add one point also? Also, you speak about fishing. Also, we have here preservative animals, like the preservative area where the animals we keep. We do have cases also related to this one. So according to that, we review our strategic plan and to introduce a new technology and test related to the animals. As forensic labs, we conduct only the human-related cases, but we see in the last few years, like the cases related to the animals had been increased. So we also introduced a new test related to this one. We have from Interpol also cases like stolen piece from animal from 200 or 300, and they sent it to Abu Dhabi police to check is it related to that animal or not using the DNA. And we did the test, and we confirmed that it is related to. So the environmental cases, it is very important, and we, as our colleagues say, we need to forecast for this one and put planning from now, and this is what Abu Dhabi and other policing is doing.
Thank you, Dr. I think we have one question from the audience. Do you have a mic? Yeah.
I do. Thank you very much for this very interesting panel. I'm Professor P.B. Anand from the Department of Peace Studies and International Development at the University of Bradford. I think this discussion is really very, very interesting. You couldn't have imagined about 10 years ago a chief police officer sitting and discussing about sustainability. I think it shows how much progress we have made. Just two related questions. So one is, as Robert Peel mentioned more than 100 years ago, policing is about winning the trust of the people, and I can see in UAE you have earned enormous trust of people in your policing. So what kind of message you would have for other policing, if you like, colleagues in other countries, how to build that trust so that their compliance is improved? Related to that is, listening to this discussion, Serge is very much involved in the IUP's work of Positive Peace Index. It sounds like positive policing. So, do you see the correlation between this kind of positive peace and positive policing? Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Well, as you know, like in UAE, there is like more than 200 different nationality living in peace. Everyone is like came up with different mentality, came up with different culture. So we as a police, we really like get into really married to this society. We could understand every mentality, how they're having. From my background, like using really technology and it is when like we go back to all this historical data and we see what is exactly the reason those people committed a crime. So we could really identify there is different reason for each nationality. From that one, we build the knowledge and we build the trust how really we can integrate all these community to be really as a one family in United Arab Emirates.
I mean, there was a question on positive peace, so I need to answer for sure. I think so at the Institute for Economics and Peace, we train communities, and we train, of course, security services also in the mindset and the concept of positive peace to create sustainable peaceful society. So that's clearly what we do. Just to show an evolution there, we used to train communities, and we used to train security services with good results. And then we said, like, why don't we train both together, all right? So why don't we train maybe, and we started to do that. I mean, my think tank is Australian. We started to do that in Melbourne with South Sudanese diaspora over there, which was, of course, living in the roughest area, creating the roughest area themselves also. And, of course, police forces were trying to alleviate that. And we saw that once you bring basically these two actors in community together, that the results were stronger because both were informed about positive peace, but both were informed about each other. And so they could work together, making really their community and their society more peaceful, and therefore achieve this higher economical and social development. So that's clearly something that we saw, where there is a communication between both. Yeah.
Well, thank you for those insightful answers. I think that if we don't have any further questions from the audience, we can begin winding down. But before I do that, you have one more chance, maybe a brief answer in a minute, to share with our audience and even among ourselves what the key takeaway of today's discussion is. So, Erin, be honored if you could start off.
All right. I think I already said it in my earlier remarks. I think one key takeaway is that police and military and security services can lead by example for communities on this topic. I think that's really important. I think the other thing I would say is that it requires, tackling these issues requires bringing different communities and different expertise together. I mean, it's kind of a unique mix of folks we have up here on the panel, and I think having those cross-cutting conversations is really important because, as you mentioned, with ecosystems, climate and sustainability issues are systemic, right? And you need to bring lots of different scientific perspectives, security perspective, political perspectives together, community perspectives to understand and tackle these issues.
Well, the key point I would pick up here is like utilizing technology in policing and integrated with the experience in the law enforcement on the ground. It will really came up with the best result you could imagine about it. We had an experience for the last 5 years. It really gave us really trained on our result. There is a lot of things being changed suddenly. I mean, for example, there is one of the indicators we have, it get a reduction suddenly by applying technology in policing. So I see the future is really to focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning and all this stuff. It will really change how policing mindset will be dealing with the circumstances.
So from my point of view, I see like we are living in integral ecosystem. So this integral ecosystem, anything will affect the ecosystem, will affect the policing. So focusing as the future on artificial intelligence and the techniques, the best practice around the world to share this knowledge with the other our experiments in the field is very important. Here I will only mention during the COVID, the autopsy of the dead body was very, very difficult in that time. So this challenge has support us to introduce a new technology using artificial intelligence, which is digital autopsies. So we cannot stop the work. So we need to think. We need to introduce a new technology. So this digital autopsy helped us in that time to stop spread of the disease within our staff. In addition, it helped us to conduct our work and give the reason of the death of that time. So using artificial intelligence these days is very important, and also, as our colleagues say, sharing the knowledge between all of us around the world is very important.
Thank you very much. A few words. First of all, it's important to have think tanks. Like, Institute for Economics and Peace, but definitely also Trends Research and Advisory. Why? Because we are giving you the figures, we are giving you the facts, and we are giving you also an outlook to what the world is looking like today and how it's going to look in the future. So, you know. Secondly, the two approaches there, it's mitigate the impact and increase resilience. So you know what's going to happen, so you can already try to mitigate the impact. That's what we saw into the video that you presented, sir, also. But also, I think there is, and that's an individual, but also an organizational, institutional responsibility to do so. And then the second part, I think that's really central also, it's to increase the resilience through initiatives. Call it positive peace, the initiatives you showed also. You need to increase social cohesion, you need to increase social resilience. So if you are hit or if something happens, first you're ready and two, you're capable. I think that's most important. Thank you.
Well, that's a wonderful wrap-up and great insights. From my point of view, this has been a very interesting discussion, a very true to the model of exchanging views across disciplines with different perspectives. And we like these things. And also I think that this discussion is characterized by a very forward-looking orientation from Abu Dhabi Police and from the Saif bin Zayed Academy. This is not common. You're one of the few police forces in the world outside of the leading countries, those 2 or 3, to actually examine and explore this issue. We, as a think tank, Serge, as you said, and as the Saif bin Zayed Academy, we believe also shares this view, it's important to examine the future trends. We need to be prepared. Things are moving so quickly that even 5 years ago, we couldn't really have imagined the threats that climate is bringing on us today, in ecological sense, in the sense some of the other things that we discussed, not only the physical manifestations, but also indirect consequences. It's very important to be prepared. I think that now we have run out of time, essentially. It's been a wonderful discussion, and I would really appreciate if you could join me in giving our panelists a big round of applause.
I am honored to invite His Excellency General Major Thani Shamsi to the stage with the panelists to take a group picture.